Ahoy there! Welcome to Rated Aargh. Thank you for joining us on our maiden voyage of our mini episodes between movies, which we are affectionately calling the Captain's Log. My name is Ryan, and I'm charting our course solo today, where we'll recap Fool's Gold, talk about a piratey trip to Rhode Island, and preview our next movie, Cutthroat Island. But now, let's roll the intro.
Captain's Log, oh log, we keep on grooving. Let's go! Across the seas, those waves are moving. Whoa! Every note, every jot, we keep on cruising. Captain's Log, yo, we ain't losing. Ooh yeah! Ooh yeah!
So welcome into the first episode of the Captain's Log. We're only posting once a month right now. We're doing one movie a month. And I really enjoy podcasting just in general. And I said, hey, it would be really fun if we did like a mini episode to kind of recap the previous movie we did, to kind of preview the next one. And we'll have some like fun games. Today, I'm up by myself. It will probably not be like that most of the time. Usually, I'll have at least one other person with me, if not all three of us, me, Christian, and Braxton. But today, you just get me. And I'd like to start off with some recommendations. So I go to the movies a lot. If you have not figured that out by now, I love going to the movies. It is probably one of my favorite things to do, if not my favorite thing to do right now. And so I basically go and see everything I can in theaters because I have AMC stubs, so I can go see 3 movies a week. Some weeks, there's not 3 movies to see, but it's not unusual for me to go up to the movie theater on a Saturday and watch 3 movies because the closest AMC to us is like a 40-ish minute drive from my house. I like to make the trip worth it as much as I can. So I've seen some movies recently that are still currently in theaters when this episode goes up. And maybe you have been wondering, hey, I've seen this advertised. Should I go watch it? And so I'm going to give you the inside scoop here. So my first recommendation is going to be Twisters. And Twisters is freaking incredible. I had not seen the original Twister until like a couple weeks ago before we went to watch this new Twisters movie, which I don't know is, the best thing. I feel like maybe the CGI would have held up a little better if I had watched it when I was younger. I mean, it came out when I was like 2 months old, so there's no way I would have watched it in theaters by any stretch of the imagination. But it was good. There were some points in it that kind of stuck out as being, I'm sure they were groundbreaking at the time, but I mean, there's several scenes where I can think, the CGI here is like kind of taking me out of the movie a little bit. I did not experience that at all in the new Twisters movie. It's incredible. Just from start to finish, I basically sat there in awe. There were several times. So I go to the movies with Braxton quite a bit. And Braxton and I are sitting there watching Twisters. And a lot of times during movies, we'll talk about random stuff in the movie as the movie's going on. And that one, there were several times where he's talking to me and there's like an intense scene or something going on screen. And I'm just like glued. Like there was no response from me. I was like in the zone watching Twisters. And it's a captivating movie if you are afraid of tornadoes. I don't know if this will help cure your tornado fear or not, but it's incredible. It's super, super good. My second recommendation is to go watch Deadpool and Wolverine. Currently, it is in the lead, and we'll see how it plays out by the end of the year. I kind of shuffle some stuff around on my top list before the end of the year. So we'll see if it stays in the number 1 spot. But Twisters had a good week at number 1, passing up Dune Part 2 before that on my list for best movie of the year. And there was like I had very little to no notes about Deadpool and Wolverine. I enjoyed the first 2 Deadpool movies. I wouldn't say they're my favorite Marvel movies or like superhero movies, if you can kind of call him a superhero. He's not exactly a hero, but he's working towards that, and he's continuing to work towards that in Deadpool and Wolverine. And I mean, it was phenomenal. We got to watch it in IMAX 3D. If you can watch it in 3D, this is one of the few movies that I've ever seen in my entire life where I would say, yes, you should probably watch that in 3D. It was incredible. It's probably one of the best usages of like actual 3D coming out of the screen at you that I've seen. It was really, really well done. And if you have not gone to see Deadpool and Wolverine yet, it's fantastic. I definitely recommend that. And then my third recommendation in theaters currently actually opens this weekend, which is called Trap. It's a new M. Night Shyamalan movie, which M. Night Shyamalan movies have a near and dear place in my heart because I was basically not into watching horror movies or even thrillers at all. And I was dating a girl in college at the time. And she wanted to go watch this movie called Split. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Split, but it's really freaking good. Did not know exactly what was going to happen in Split. Didn't even really know the premise of the movie. I'm not even sure if we watched the trailer before we went to see it. And it was like the most intense 2 hours of my life that I think I've ever experienced to this date. But it opened my eyes to because it's more of a thriller than it is horror, but it kind of opened my eyes to okay, horror is not all, demons. That's the one thing I will not watch is anything with demons or nuns. And no, not my thing. Ghosts even are kind of on the edge there. Monsters don't really bother me. Slashers don't really bother me. Tense things don't bother me now, but that is because of watching Split. And it is potentially in my top 2 M. Night Shyamalan movies. I also really love The Village. I think there's a really deep meaning, and that movie is crapped on a lot. But he has a new movie opening this weekend called Trap, which I'm really excited to see. So I'll try to report back next month on the Captain's Log and let everyone know how my experience with Trap went. If you have the if you have any desire in you to follow me on Letterboxd, I do stay very active on Letterboxd. I try to update my movies as I watch them. Sometimes it'll be more in groups of 2 or 3, depending on when I actually get to it. But I'm at rtrav on Letterboxd if you have any inkling to go and follow me there. Because I watch a lot of movies, and a lot of times my movie reviews are not fantastic, but maybe you'll get a kick out of it. And then I have 2 streaming, potentially streaming. I'm not sure if the second one is streaming right now or not, but it probably will be at some point. It is out on physical media on Blu-ray and DVD. But my first recommendation streaming-wise, if you have not seen this movie, is one of my favorite movies from last year, potentially one of the best theater experiences that I've had ever, and it is Godzilla Minus One. It is currently streaming on Netflix. It's incredible. If you're not into Godzilla movies, that's okay. I was not into Godzilla movies going into this, and I think it's potentially one of the best movies that I've ever seen. It won an Oscar, I think, for visual effects, and it is incredible. If you have the time to watch it, I would recommend watching it subbed with in Japanese with subtitles. I think that's probably the best way. I have not watched it I haven't watched it dubbed in English, but I've heard it's decent in English. But I think to get the full experience, there's something about watching a foreign film in the native language where you actually hear the actors that you're seeing on screen. You hear their actual voice and their actual emotion and their inflections that they use in their voice and things like that. I think that's a very important thing, and it's become my favorite way to watch foreign films or even foreign TV shows. And then my second recommendation, or actually my last recommendation, is Challengers. And if you haven't seen Challengers, it stars Zendaya, sort of. I would not even necessarily say that she is the star, but she's on the cover of the Blu-ray. And she's got a pretty pivotal role in the movie. But it has a soundtrack that I, at first, was annoyed with. I watched it again the other night because I bought it on Blu-ray. The soundtrack is incredible. I'm pretty proud of my my audio setup that I have in my living room now. It's like a 5.1 system. It's got a big subwoofer. I love watching things at my house. And I realized that I like watching things on physical media, Blu-rays, 4Ks specifically, because the audio on them is phenomenal. It's not, you get a lot of compression on streaming. It's just not the same. I'll say it. I've been converted. Before I was like, I would rather have the digital version of it. I've done some testing. It's not the same. And this is one that I think probably benefits from having a physical release because the sound is amazing. Like even just over the main title where you select play or setup or see extra footage and stuff is phenomenal. Like I turned it on, I was like, wow, this sounds really good. So challengers, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. If you go pick it up on Blu-ray, it's worth it. In my opinion, it's worth it. That's it for Ryan's Recs this week. That's all I've got to recommend at the moment. I'm sure this may be a continuing thing if anyone is interested in hearing what I have to recommend. But yeah, Twisters, Deadpool, and Wolverine, and Trap in theaters. I am a big proponent of watching things on the biggest screen possible. And so I go to the theater a lot. And I know that that's not the way that a lot of people prefer to consume media. But if you enjoy going to the movie theater, those are good ones to check out. Especially the first two. Twisters, Deadpool, Wolverine are... They are something that I think if you don't watch it in theaters, you're doing yourself a disservice by not experiencing it in the way that it was intended to be seen. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's recap Fool's Gold. Okay, Fool's Gold stars Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson. I'm actually wearing my tie-dye today in honor of Matthew McConaughey's character, Finn, in this, because he wears a lot of tie-dye, and I kind of want his wardrobe. I would love to have all the tie-dye that he wears during this. If you haven't seen that episode yet, we did have some issues getting it up on YouTube because of copyright restrictions. Apparently, Warner Brothers has Fool's Gold on lockdown. I edited the thing I think I uploaded it to YouTube 16 times. And I finally just gave up. I was like, this is too much trouble for me to keep exporting it and uploading it, because exporting, by the time you make the cuts, it may take you 15, 20 minutes, depending on what you're doing. Exporting it takes 20 minutes on my computer. It takes a half hour at least to upload and process. Actually, it may take longer to process. It may be an hour. And then it's hey, by the way, you have copyrighted material in here. Do you want to remove all of it? And I'm like, no, I don't want to remove all of it. I want people to watch this the way we intended to see it. So if you are into watching our episodes, because I understand, it's a podcast, you don't have to necessarily watch it. It is available on Spotify. Go look us up over there. Make sure when you're there, you hit that follow button. Maybe share it with a friend if you would like to. But that's kind of the gist. We've had some issues. It took me by the time, I also was on vacation. It took me 2 weeks to get the thing up finally. And that was unacceptable, in my opinion, on my part. And I apologize for all of the problems there. There's not too much we could do about it. I've tried to cut down on the number of clips that we showed because we probably overdid it a little bit on that one. But, it is what it is. And if you haven't seen Fool's Gold yet, not even the podcast episode, but if you haven't seen Fool's Gold, the movie, I love it. It's probably somewhere towards the top of my rom-com list, if not my overall movie list. I think it's just a fun movie in general. It's got some really cool underwater sequences, the treasure's cool. There's some kind of stuff we talked about in the episode that's kind of weird and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend doing that. I'm not sure where it's even streaming right now, honestly. We watched it on Blu-ray. If you have a local video store and you have a Blu-ray player or a DVD player, it's usually one that you can find a lot of places. I mean, it's popular enough, I guess, that a lot of people bought the physical release for it, but it's not loved enough that people want to keep it. So it's kind of one of those movies. You can probably find it at your local game exchange or video store or wherever that they sell used physical media. And go watch it. It's really freaking good. Okay, so Rhode Island, I got to take a trip to. We took a little vacation. Specifically, we kind of went to like the Newport area, flew into Providence, drove down to Newport. And it was very cool. I've never been to Rhode Island before. This was the first time that I went. And it's a really interesting place. There's lots of like mega yachts that are moored out there. Moored? I don't know how to say that word apparently. And apparently it's very expensive to keep a yacht. Not only the yacht itself, but just to like have it anchored out there where you can just go out to it. It's apparently quite expensive. Really cool. Saw some massive yachts. There's one that's owned, I can't remember what the guy's name is. He is the CEO of DSW and American Eagle and like a couple other companies or something. But he has like a $75 million yacht that's moored in Newport. And it's called Just Jay's. You can see pictures of it online. In fact, I'll throw one up here in the episode so that you guys can see it. And it is massive, like unreal. And the guy that we had giving us a tour on our sunset cruise where we went and, looked at some of the local sites, got to go see Goat Island, which I'll talk about here in just a second. But we got to look at a lot of yachts. And yachts are pretty darn cool. And I feel like if you go to Newport, you would probably have more fun if you were on a yacht. Not that it's boring or anything by any means, but being on a yacht would be pretty darn cool. Not going to lie. They had a yacht in Fool's Gold. It looked awesome. Just going to throw that out there. But it was interesting. We were walking back from dinner the first night we were there. We had a really good dinner. If you haven't had a lobster roll, you're missing out. It's one of my favorite foods. But it was cool. We were walking back. I had a lobster roll, full belly, walking back. Over to the side, this shop has like one of those big like plywood painted cutout things with a hole for your face that you can put in and take a picture. And I'll show you guys here what this looked like because we did take a picture in front of it. And it had a pirate on it. Of all things, right? So we've been doing this podcast. I feel like I've seen just tons of piratey stuff lately. Pirate shows up and I'm like, I wonder how important like pirates were in Newport. So it turns out that Rhode Island, and even more specifically Newport, where we were, was a pirate haven back in the day. So from 1650 to 1700, pirates fitted out in Rhode Island. Pirates were even able to obtain commissions in Rhode Island as privateers, which allowed them to capture the ships of an enemy. They could bring the goods to Rhode Island, and that ship would legally be declared the property of the pirate. A portion of the contents went to the local government, issuing the commissions, and while this was somewhat legal in Rhode Island, if you can call it that, the English were not happy about this because they saw this as smuggling and tax evasion. So you got the English, across the pond, not happy with this at all. But to Rhode Islanders, the act of piracy at the time was a normal practice which allowed the townspeople to buy goods at cheaper prices, and they loved it, so much so that privateering was a full-time employment opportunity, and Rhode Islanders signed up to be pirate crew members. One of the more famous hauls that came into Rhode Island was a ship called the Pelican that was seized from the French. It was refitted with 16 guns and a crew of 100 and was commissioned to set sail to return several captured sailors back to Jamaica. But the problem was that the captain of this ship, his name is Captain Colley, he had no plan to go back to Jamaica. And instead he went to Madagascar where they did the usual, rob, pillage. They burned a bunch of settlements on islands near Madagascar. He wanted to be a pirate. He was not about taking these prisoners back to Jamaica. He's like, we're going to go and have an adventure and go do what I want to do. So they set out. He goes to Madagascar. Not a great situation, I'm sure, if you're like being paid to take people back to Jamaica and instead you go and do piratey things. Probably doesn't look great in terms of, not only him ever being commissioned again, but just like the visual of pirates in general. Because, it's pretty positive in Rhode Island. You don't really necessarily want to sour that because one guy decides he's going to go and do his own thing. But pirates in Rhode Island were able to use the legal system to their advantage in what today would be considered money laundering. George Cutler was arrested for piracy, and he had a large sum of money in his possession on his ship called the Fowey. He was let out immediately on bail and was placed on trial on March 28th, 1999, where the rules of the trial were that if no one showed up to claim the cash and goods, then George would be declared the rightful owner of the goods. So no one offered any proof against him. No one came forward and said, yeah, that was mine. I mean, he's being arrested because they think he's a pirate and he's stolen all this money. So there's not really anybody in the area, I guess, to be able to show up and say, yeah, that's my stuff that he took. So no one offers any proof against him. And so then he gets to keep everything and decided, hey, this is kind of a cool place. So he takes up residency in Newport with his stash of cash. And then he joins with a guy named Thomas Pine a few months later and becomes one of the founders of the Trinity Church in Newport. So kind of cool. Pirate steals a lot of money, basically set, I guess, for life, and is like, hey, let's start a church. Why not? Some other notable names who were in and around Rhode Island are William Downs, who escaped from jail in April 1698. He tricked one of the under-sheriffs at the time and said he needed to go out and, I think, ease himself is the way that they phrase that, which I guess would mean he just needed to go to the bathroom or something. So the sheriff lets him out. He escapes. And then another notable name that was in and around Rhode Island is Captain Kidd, very famous pirate. But he was initially on an expedition financed by the Earl of Bellamont, and his mission was actually against pirates. But you can kind of probably tell how that went because Captain Kidd took a liking to piracy himself, and as much as he was supposed to be against pirates, he ends up becoming one. But all that changed in Rhode Island. Rhode Island stopped being a pirate haven on July 19th, 1723, when 26 pirates were executed in Newport. The men were hanged at Gravelly Point and buried at the north end of Goat Island, which there's a lighthouse. We actually got to see this on the Sunset Cruise. I'll throw up a picture here. The captain actually put us in the perfect spot at sunset where the sun came through the lighthouse. Pretty cool picture. Anyway, they have this lighthouse that people get married at. And our guide on this Sunset Cruise said, hey, he asked the guy that's in charge of the Goat Island. I guess he's technically maybe like the owner to an extent. Anyway, the person that's in charge of like booking the weddings and everything, he said, hey, like, have you ever told anybody like, hey, yeah, there's like 17 pirates buried under here? It says 26. Our guide said 17. Who knows? The guy says, no. Of course, why would we tell anyone that? And he's like, dude, you could get some pirate-themed weddings out here. Like, there would probably be a decent amount of people that would want to get buried above dead pirates. Like, you never know. So they're hanged. They're buried at the north end of Goat Island, and they're buried between the high and low water mark, which many believed is a sign that their souls will never truly be at rest due to the rising and falling tides. This is one of the largest public executions I could find in U.S. history, which I guess technically is the colonies because, it was not the United States in 1723 yet. But it's said that there was never a greater number of pirates executed at any one time in the history of the original 13 colonies. So pretty big deal. And this, when I Googled pirates that night, I think I Googled pirates in Rhode Island. This is like the first thing that comes up on Google. It's like, yeah, there were 26 pirates that were executed on July 19th, 1723. So interesting stuff. Kind of a big deal. Pirates were very welcome in Rhode Island until they weren't. And, that's kind of the situation that I think a lot of places had with pirates. Kind of interesting how pirates influenced Rhode Island culture. And, you can still kind of maybe see some of the lasting effects today because there's a sports team in Rhode Island called the Providence Pirates, and they are part of the American Basketball Association. So, professional team taking the name the Pirates, which, it also kind of fits because Providence starts with a P, Pirate starts with a P. Either way, kind of neat that pirates have had somewhat of a lasting impact up there in Rhode Island. And I don't know how many of you out there listening to this play Fortnite. But there is some like kind of substantial news in the pirate sphere in terms of some Fortnite skins. So they recently, like it's still going on as I speak, have a series of challenges and skins in the item shop for characters from Pirates of the Caribbean, which is pretty darn cool. And they look amazing. In the item shop, they have Captain Barbossa, Davy Jones, and Elizabeth Swann. And then there's like a premium challenge pass that you can purchase that will give you the Jack Sparrow skin. And then as you progress through the challenges, you'll unlock a cursed Jack Sparrow, which is like him in Curse of the Black Pearl towards the end where he becomes cursed, and so when the moonlight hits him, it's a skeleton. He looks really cool. But it's interesting how many pirate-related things that I've seen since we started this show. It could be just a situation similar to when you buy a certain car and then suddenly you're like, wow, there are so many of these exact same cars on the road, and you see them everywhere. So I don't know if maybe that's the situation or if somehow we started this at like the perfect time for piratey things. So before I preview Cutthroat Island, while I'm on the Pirates of the Caribbean topic, I do have a clip from an interview that Variety did with Sean Levy, Ryan Reynolds, and Hugh Jackman for the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie, where he's specifically talking about Johnny Depp. It's a pretty cool little clip, so let's go ahead and watch that.
With Hugh stepping into the role of Wolverine, you know how like when you watch somebody the first time they step into something that is that iconic, it's just like they just knew a language or understood something about that character that nobody else would have thought of or felt. Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean, that first one where you're like, is he drunk?
Right.
Like,
what
is this a
what
Disney movie? And is the lead character like hammered with gold teeth? You know, you just go, no, you can't. But you realize that person has got their finger on something that is sort of perfect in its own imperfection. And I love that. But I notice you see that with you. Eddie Murphy in the Nutty Professor movies. Again, you'd be like, on paper, you'd go, well, that's nuts. I don't know if that's going to work. That's
but sometimes what it's waiting for is a character is waiting for the actor who's meant to play them. And I will say, as the director on this, when you're on set every day and you're watching not only two great actors, but in the roles that they are somehow magic in, where it's tapping into parts of Ryan, parts of Hugh that are so intuitive and so singular and unique to them, that's why it's such a treat for us as an audience.
So a pretty cool clip there. I thought it was interesting. I was watching this the other day because I've watched most of the things that they've done just because a lot of times Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman together are hilarious for one thing. But they also just have like a really good vibe between the two of them, basically at all times, which, you know, they're good friends. But they also pick at each other a lot. And it was interesting to me that of all the people that they could have like thought of in the moment where, you know, the character and the actor are almost synonymous, he brings up Johnny Depp playing Jack Sparrow. I mean, I just thought that was really interesting because, you know, we briefly touched on it in the first one. We'll talk about it probably a little more when we do Dead Man's Chest, but it's interesting just how perfect that Johnny Depp is for the Jack Sparrow role, because I don't know that anybody else could have played Jack Sparrow and given even somewhat of a close performance that Johnny Depp does. I mean, he says it in the clip, like you look at him on screen and you're like, is this in a Disney movie and the lead actor is drunk the whole time? And somehow he is, figured out the best way for him to play Jack Sparrow. But I also thought it was interesting that Sean Levy says, you know, sometimes the character is just waiting for the actor, and then when those things come together, it just creates something that no one could have even thought about. And it's one of those things in Pirates of the Caribbean that's so special, is just how good that Johnny Depp is playing the Jack Sparrow character. And I think Jack Sparrow, because this is a pirate podcast, we're kind of fortunate that we have Jack Sparrow to look to and be like, yeah, I think that may be kind of one of the most perfect depictions of a pirate. And that's not to say that all pirates were that way, but it started kind of a cultural phenomenon, or maybe even reignited a cultural phenomenon for pirates. And I don't know if we'll ever get a Pirates of the Caribbean 6. I know I've seen some stuff about that after all the legal stuff with Johnny Depp. Probably not going to happen, but it would be really cool to get like one more movie in our lifetime that's a pirate movie with Jack Sparrow specifically. And I don't know if we'll ever see another pirate in a movie that is played so perfectly as Johnny Depp plays Jack Sparrow. And all that to be said, the next movie that we are watching is not Dead Man's Chest. It is Cutthroat Island. And Cutthroat Island stars Gina Davis and Matthew Modine. It's a swashbuckling adventure that's directed by Rennie Harlan. Unfortunately, the film bombed at the box office, like really bombed super hard at the box office. It almost killed the pirate genre as a whole. And we'll talk about that quite a bit in the episode when it comes out on the 10th. But I think it's a must watch, specifically because the stunts and explosion in this movie are potentially some of the most outrageous that I've ever seen. Rennie Harlan had a desire for all of his actors to do their own stunts, which I'm sure, also contributed to the outrageous budget that this thing had. But the explosions are also like, they're actual real explosions, and they come across on the screen as actual real explosions. And it's something that I think you need to witness. We kind of briefly touch on it. You could probably just like YouTube the clips of it if you want. But you don't really have any context if you do that. So I'd recommend at least watching it before the episode, just so that you have a clear vision of what we're trying to convey when we talk about some of the stuff that we do. If you would like to watch it, it is available to stream for free on Tubi and Pluto TV, as far as I can tell. And then there's also currently, at most Walmarts, depending on where you are, they may or may not be there. But they do have a 4K Steelbook that looks really cool, available at Walmart if you are into collecting physical media at all. So definitely try to check out Cutthroat Island if you can. It's definitely worth the watch, in my opinion. It's very good. I think this may be one of our best episodes yet as well. So make sure to mark your calendars for August 10th. And this has been your captain speaking. We'll see you next time.
Ooh, yeah! Yo ho ho, in the groove we go. Come on, pirate disco, make that rhythm glow. Shake it, no mutiny, when we got that beat. Sail it smooth with funk